Thank you for joining again tonight. I am Ryan Neiman, Fantasy Sports U here. Catch us on Twitter at FantasyUSports. Catch all of our articles at fsportsu.com. Finally, I created an Instagram after all these years. Follow us there at fsportsu for all the crazy pictures we post up there. Probably cat pictures, dog pictures, whatever we can find. But thanks again for joining tonight. I am Ryan Neiman. We have a guest in the house, Jay Sanchez, sports blogger at Jay Knows Sports, will be joining us here tonight to talk about the UFC, upcoming fights, and much more that is happening in the UFC. Again, I am Ryan Neiman. Thanks again for joining tonight. A lot happened on Monday today, or Tuesday. Got the days mixed up. A lot happened. Unfortunate news with two players in different sports. This morning, Raymond Felton of the New York Knicks was arrested on 3 misdemeanor charges after he apparently pulled his gun out on his wife and threatened her. He is now on bail, but makes you question why athletes do even carry weapons in the first place, and why teams really do not regulate players, what they purchase. I really think that in any league, you should really put something in their contract, a clause or something, to limit these type of purchases, because it's really just going to land them in trouble if they're in the wrong situation and at the wrong time. Another legal problem occurred in the NFL when Aaron Hernandez reportedly beat the crap out of an inmate who was harassing him the entire time. Mr. Hernandez, you're really not making your not guilty case stand up right now. Also tonight, Wichita State stayed undefeated to go 30-0 by defeating Bradley 69-49, the number 2 team in the nation, what I think should actually be the number 1, just based on their record and how hard it is to stay undefeated for that long. As I noted right now, we have a guest in the house, Jay Sanchez at jknowsports.wordpress.com. You can follow him on Twitter at jknowsports. Is here to talk to us right now about UFC. Thanks for joining us, Jay. How's it going?
Good, thanks for having me.
A lot happened over the weekend for the UFC, especially in the women's division. Ronda Rousey defeated Sarah McCain with a body shot. It was actually her first victory without using the armbar. Now there are rumors right now swirling that Rousey and a potential matchup with Chris Cyborg to curate a super fight. Tell us more about that.
Basically, those are just rumors, Ryan. Problem is, Chris Cyborg fights in the 145-pound division, and Rousey fights at 135. Cyborg wants to fight Rousey at a catchweight in between at maybe 140 pounds, but I don't think Rousey wants to take that challenge, and I think the UFC is trying to protect her because she's right now the UFC's biggest draw, and she doesn't want it to be taken away from an outsider. But of course, everyone wants this fight to happen. The women's division in the UFC, outside of Kat Zingano, is really weak. There's no one that could really challenge Rousey in that division. So of course, MMA fans will be clamoring for the Cyborg fight to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. Cyborg's doctor doesn't want her to go. She could fight at 135, but only for a few fights. And Dana White has stated that if Cyborg does sign with the UFC, she cannot jump into a title fight with Rousey. She's got to earn her worth, basically. And so those are just rumors. I don't think that fight's going to happen unless Cyborg does drop down to 135 and fights a few competitors before she jumps into the Rousey title fight.
As you said, it really makes a lot of sense for the UFC to somehow push for this fight because of how all the fans want this to happen. So I'm surprised that Dana White would not just throw her into there, just because there's so much marketing and money that can be made from this type of fight. Now, for this season, Who are the top fighters that everyone should watch out for in 2014?
For 2014, I'm going to start off with Conor McGregor. He's a featherweight. He's 14-2. His mixed martial arts record. If you guys haven't seen Conor McGregor, YouTube one of his fights and also YouTube one of his interviews. He's pure entertainment. But as a fighter, he's very exciting. He's very well-rounded. He goes for finishes. He's undefeated right now in the UFC. He actually tore his ACL in the second round of his last fight against Max Holloway, and still fought another round and won by unanimous decision against Holloway. I mean, he's honestly, to me, he's like the next Floyd Mayweather of the UFC. He has already basically called out all the top 10 fighters in the featherweight division. He feels like he's confident, even beating Jose Aldo, who has the featherweight belt. So we'll see. He hasn't faced anyone in the top 10 yet, but I see him being a big contender in that division and ultimately challenging for the belt.
And what other fighters do you think that you want to look out for too?
Oh, another one is Jimmy Manua. He's fighting Alexander Gustafsson March 8th. Alec Gustafsson is the number one contender. He lost his last fight against John Jones last year. He's basically a fighter that MMA fans and casual fight fans want to see. He's just a knockout artist. He's undefeated in the MMA. He's 14-0. 13 of them are knockouts. One of them by submission. Like I said, he just likes to stand toe to toe with his opponents and likes to keep it standing. And that's what fight fans might want to see, just potential knockouts.
Are those your top two then?
Oh, one more. Jacare Souza. He fought just a couple weeks ago and beat Francis Carmont by unanimous decision. He's a former Strikeforce middleweight champion. He's basically the opposite of Manua, who he prefers to fight on the ground. But in my opinion, he has the best ground game in the UFC. He's a 5-time World Jiu-Jitsu champion. He'll be in the mix for a title shot this year or early next year, but he's going to be waiting in line behind Vitor Belfort, who's going to fight the champion Chris Weidman in late May, and he also has to wait for Lyoto Machida, who just beat Gegard Mousasi last week.
Of all those fighters, which ones do you think have the highest potential for this season?
For this season, Conor McGregor, he tore his ACL, so he might not be back until spring or summer. So I'm going to say Jimmy Manua. I feel like he's going to, even though Gustafsson's the number one contender in the light heavyweight division, I think Manua's going to take him down and maybe supplant himself as the number one contender to fight John Jones. But now Jones is the pound for pound best fighter in the UFC, so I don't know how that match would fare, but I think this year would be a big leap in the UFC career of Jimmy Manua.
And with all that being said, the top fighters, another top fighter, Nick Diaz, who lost his last 2 fights, says he wants to fight the winner of the Johnny Hendrick and the Robbie Lawler fight for a chance at the title fight. For a guy who lost his last 2 fights, does he even deserve a shot at the title?
Basically, whoever doesn't know Nick Diaz is basically an idiot. He just likes to talk for fights. He doesn't deserve a shot at all. There are a lot of fighters in front of him that deserve a shot. Actually, in that same card, Hendricks and Lawler are fighting UFC 171. In that same card, 2 other welterweights, Carlos Condit and Tyron Woodley, will also be fighting. And maybe the winner of that is probably going to face the winner of the Hendricks-Lawler fight for a title shot. Nick Diaz, Rory McDonald, who beat Damian Maia in UFC 170 last weekend, he deserves a shot in front of Nick Diaz as well. He lost, like you said, he lost the last 2 fights. He should not be talking about a title shot. He needs to earn his keep.
So it's basically just smoke in the water. He's just talking, and none of this should be taken seriously.
No, I mean Nick Diaz is all he does is talk. He talked his way to get a title shot with George St. Pierre, and he got his butt whooped. So maybe he should keep quiet and just start fighting to prove his point.
Now, one of the bigger stories, and one of my favorite fighters, was Rashad Evans. He's out 6 months. What does this mean for the UFC and the implications for the light heavyweight division?
Obviously Rashad Evans not fighting, pulling out of UFC 170 was a big hit. It could have got better ratings. He's supposed to fight Daniel Cormier, but instead Cormier fought a man named Patrick Cummins, who had only 10 days to prepare for that fight. Rashad Evans, he's one of the fixtures in the UFC. He helped make the UFC to where it is right now. And he's also a great fighter. But like I said, he had a knee injury from training for the Cormier fight. He'll be back. I don't know where he'll stand. Maybe he will fight Cormier down the line, but I just hope for the best for him.
It's just a shame because now you have Evans down, and recently Anderson Silva just went down with a brutal, probably one of the worst and most gruesome things I've ever seen live on television when he broke his leg. Do you think Silva will ever come back? And if so, would the Spider ever come back the same?
Yeah, Anderson Silva, I don't think he wants for a great of a fighter he is, I don't think he wants to end his career the way he did, breaking his leg against Chris Weidman. As of an update right now, I think he got out of surgery a couple weeks ago. He'll be back. Of course, he's got to earn his way up the middleweight ranks. There's a lot. The funny thing about the middleweight ring, it's one of the toughest divisions right now in the UFC. So we'll see when he gets back. I don't think he's gonna be the same, but him being 75% is still one of the best fighters in the middleweight division.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to take out his leg kicks. Because him breaking his leg, I don't think he could ever continue doing that move. His signature move, I don't think he could do that anymore. He might be too afraid, but who knows when he comes back. Now, the UFC is expanding their coverage with the Fight Pass, and this is huge for the UFC. They're going to be reaching a larger audience. They're already on Fox Sports, a move that I think ESPN should have definitely took advantage of, but they backed away. What does this mean for the UFC, and how is this good for the sport?
Basically, for the UFC, it's just a way to make more money than they already have. For those who don't know about the Fight Pass, it's you pay $10 a month to watch fight replays and also coverage of fights that aren't going to be aired on Fox Sports anymore. For example, the Manu Gustafsson fight is going to be on UFC Fight Pass, not on any television broadcast. So those who want to watch that fight have to pay for this membership. In terms of, I mean, it's a good idea to make more money, but in terms of the growth of fans, I am not entirely sure, because I don't know if a casual fight fan would want to spend $10 a month to watch UFC fights. But it's a great way to make money. I mean, I'm going to be forced to have to pay for that membership to watch some of these fights. So it worked on me.
Yeah, I'm a huge UFC fan, and I always felt that they could reach a larger audience. And for some reason, Dana White's been reluctant when it first started, because I understand it's something that's just a gold mine, and it's maybe his what do you call it? It's his brainchild. It's just his own baby project, and he doesn't want to ruin it. But I've always felt that he has to find a way to expand it more. It's just growing bigger and bigger every year. So hopefully this does garner more younger demographics and just continues that revenue, as you mentioned. Now, to discuss the other fighting, we're going to get to boxing now. It was just announced that Madonna will be fighting the prima donna of boxing, Floyd Mayweather. Talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, Marcos Maidana is going to fight Floyd Mayweather May 3rd in the MGM Grand. Maidana is coming off probably this biggest win of his career, beating Adrian Broner by unanimous decision. I mean, he knocked him down twice and basically just destroyed him round by round. And a lot of boxing pundits, they're saying that maybe Maidana can have a chance with Mayweather because Broner and Mayweather are similar fighters. Listen, the only similarities between Mayweather and Adrian Broner is that they're both black and they both talk a lot of crap to their opponents. Mayweather is a much smarter fighter. He has the best defense in the business. He's more conditioned than Broner, despite being 13 years older. I think Mayweather is gonna beat up on Maidana. In order to beat Mayweather, you gotta beat him with speed and power. Maidana has one punch power to where if he hits an opponent flush, he's gonna knock him down. But Mayweather's defense is too sound and complete for a clean shot like that to happen. So, like I said, in order to beat Mayweather, you need someone that can beat him with speed, that can throw flurries with combos, and with some power behind it. Perhaps Manny Pacquiao, but he might still be ducking him for now.
How many rounds do you think this match will go?
Well, Mayweather is not one to try and... He's more of a defensive fighter. This fight's going to go the distance, with Mayweather winning the majority of the rounds. The problem last fight with Maidana and Adrian Broner is that Maidana cornered Broner against the ropes, and it was pretty much Maidana's punching bag throughout the fight. Mayweather is much smarter than that. He's going to move around and dictate the pace of this fight, and eventually have his hand raised. But Maidana's going to have a big payday, so good for him.
Now, this is not the fight that all boxing fans want to see. They all want to see the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather fight. This is off subject, but do you think this will ever happen?
It's going to happen because right now that's the super fight in boxing as of now, and of course Mayweather likes money. The fight's gonna happen. I don't know when, but first Manny Pacquiao has to fight Timothy Bradley and get over his defeat, which was very controversial when Bradley beat him by split decision. But eventually, I think it's gonna happen. Money talks.
Do you think Justin Bieber's going to be there, walking down with him? Or who do you think is going to be by this side? I wonder who's going to walk with him.
One Direction, man.
Well, this has been Talking UFC with Jay Sanchez, sports blogger at jknowsports.wordpress.com. Where can people follow you on Twitter?
At jknowsports.
Awesome. We're probably going to talk to you next week more about the upcoming fights. Thanks again, Jay, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks, Jay. That was Jay Sanchez with Jay Knows Sports. As he said, go to his blog at jknowsports.wordpress.com. Follow him on Twitter at jknowsports. He does not only talk about UFC, but that's his specialty, but he talks about other topics too, so check him out over there. This has been another episode of Fantasy Sports U. Thank you again for listening. Follow us on Twitter at FantasyUSports. All our articles can be read at fsportsu.com. If you want to see funny cat pictures, check out our Instagram at fsportsu. I am Ryan Neiman. Thanks again for listening, and have a great night.